It's time once again for another version of Goodwin Square. And today, Goodwin Square finds us again in Wethersfield at the Silas Dean Pawn Shop here on Silas Dean Highway in Wethersfield. Okay, today's story involves a guy I knew from Phoenix, Arizona. This was a guy, his name was Brent. He lived in Phoenix, Arizona. He was a security guard. And he used to guard the convention center down in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, the thing about Brent was an older man. Brent was about 10 years older than me. I was about 45 at the time, so he was pushing 60, I'd say. But the thing about Brent, well, there were actually many things about Brent. One was his job, which I couldn't quite understand because Brent was a security guard, but also he had a college education. And all right, yeah, BS, BA, whatever, from Baylor, I think, school, ironically. But also, the thing about Brent, he had a college degree, but Brent was a lot smarter than a bachelor's degree. Brent was extremely bright and extremely intelligent. And one of those guys that if he wanted to, he could use his mind, not for paper degrees, but for a real job that could pay some real good money. Okay? Because Brent liked money, and more important than money, Brent loved things. Brent was crazy about things, okay? He enjoyed bicycling. He was a big hobby. That was a big hobby for him, was bicycling. He must have had 7 or 8 bikes, touring bikes. All right. With each bike, he had a cyclist outfit too, complete. One of those spandex kind of cyclist outfits. He looked absurd in them, but he had them, and he was proud to wear them. And proud to show them off. Brent was big on showing off his things, One day I asked him, he lived in the projects downtown, and he had like a 1-bedroom apartment. And after a while, I got to know him. I asked him one time, I said, Brent, it's like, where do you keep all these things in your 1-bedroom apartment? I mean, 5 bikes, clothes. I mean, he never wore the same clothes twice. A lot of things. I said, how do you find room in your 1-bedroom apartment to have everything, have all these things, He said, well, there's a place for everything. His exact words. There's a place for everything. I said, man, there must be, because you're big on things. Okay. Mind you, with Brent, I never saw him with a woman. Never saw him with a guy. But he never had a girlfriend, never talked about a woman, never talked about a girlfriend, never talked about relationships or anything like that. He was always by himself, and I think one of the reasons he was always by himself is because he was kind of a bitter man. Kind of a bitter man. he was very sour and dour all the time. Seemed to always have like something on his shoulders that he was trying to shake off for some reason, you know? And just extremely bitter and always angry, you know? And it's funny, I used to think to myself in conversations with him, God, I hope I never get like him. I hope I never get so materialistic and so petty and so picky and so thingy oriented that they overcome me and they make me mad, you know, because I need this thing or I need that thing. Tell you, I once tested Brent on his love for things, and we met at a Starbucks one day, and we were talking, and he had on like another Diamondback cap. He always wore some cap, and every time I saw him, it was new. So we start talking, and he puts the cap on the table, okay, between us. And we're talking. I thought, well, I'll give him a test, because this thing with Brent about things was just galling me, He was just so thingy. So we're talking, and I just casually picked up his cap and began to look at it. You would have thought that I just stabbed him or I just shot him. He sat back in his chair with wide eyes, an open mouth of an aghast expression. And then collected himself and continued talking. After I said, oh, I like this cap. This is a really nice cap. And then he told me about how expensive it was and where he bought it and how it was a collector's cap. But the mere touch sent him into frenzy. Okay, that I had picked and touched his valued Diamondback cap. It's ironic after 4 years on the road. I can't help but feel, sadly, that I've become a Brent in many ways. Because in the last 4 years, the greed, the pettiness, the jealousies, the thinginess I've seen all over the country, whether it's water in fountains, lack of restrooms in parks, cars on the highway, and this thing about having an automobile and everybody gets one. And of course, housing, shelter. The pettiness of it all and the insanity of it all, has really angered me and has made me mad and has put me in many cities where I'm just howling at the moon and I'm screaming at the moon because, there's no water in the water fountain in the parks, or, they don't have hot water today at the Planet Fitness gym I'm paying for. It's just this pettiness and this thing about things. And, it's sad, and that I've become a Brent, and very sad.